Alright everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be kind of like a, I don't know, a like report card in a way. So we're about 6 months into the attunement block of UniVersus, and I decided to like kind of see how it's going, like pull the community, X, Y, and Z. So first off, let's go ahead and kind of jump back into the old article that was what is attuned. This was leading up to the Attack on Titan 1 set, and they were UniVersus games themselves stated that they were going to be moving in this direction where we'd have attune symbols, and attune symbols means that you have a main symbol in your deck, and then you have symbols that also match your character in your deck, but they're attuned, so it's okay to have them in there. Let's go ahead and get back into the article real quick. It's a new tune is an additional way to represent resource symbols in UniVersus. This is all the tune symbols, yada. So what does it mean? A card with a tune symbol on it can be played in a deck whose starting character possesses the corresponding resource symbol regardless of the deck's primary symbol. So it kind of just went into it, and it also said a tune provides players with additional tools to enhance their decks. They don't replace traditional UniVersus symbols, but rather offer a new layer of depth of gameplay deck building. Expect to see attune symbols at a pre-release event, blah, 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 blah. This kind of came either after, I think this came after the mental load article. So instead of having your deck being one symbol, now it can be up to 3 symbols, or 4 or 5, depending on how many symbols your characters have. So that kind of defeats the purpose of the mental load, right? But whatever. We worked through it, and we went along, and I went ahead, like 6 months later, roughly. I think we started like in August. So we're about 6 months or so into, maybe 7 at the most, into Attunement land, and I got some feedback from the community. Here's just some states. I think attunements need if the goal is we're moving in a world where everything is attuned. I think the mismatch, to preface this is after Critical Role came out, so we found that some of the rares, URs, and ultra rares were non-attuned after having 2 sets of all attuned cards. Granted, we also had a few challenger decks that had all attuned, with the Deku deck having also just regular symbols, because that was, I believe that was probably designed with just MHA Spotlight in mind. So we'll go forward. Returning to making decks was hard because I would get mixed up on symbols, and that as someone who's experienced and returning, I can't imagine how overwhelming it is if you're new. In a world where everything is attuned, I think it's just a good idea because deck building is, if it has my symbol, I want to do the thing. But products like the Tekken decks and the Hex, URs, SRs are strange being non-attuned. Another person said, I like the idea of attuned. It does give more opportunities in deck building, and it makes decks a bit more unique, though I think attunement should only be rare and below. I love Attune because it feels like symbols are gaining their identity back, and it allows access to the other symbols of your characters. I don't like them on URs, SRs, because decks begins to look the same, with higher rarity cards having Attune. So I think really on that point is that you start having, I think decks, like if we look at the AOT 1 and 2 cards, that kind of provided the shell of those symbols, and then now with Hex cards being of higher rarity cards being like more character driven, I think that's going to be a little better than just everything being attuned. Another person said, I think it was a good idea. Bad execution in AOT. Due to there only being 6 symbols in AOT, it ended up feeling more like a band-aid fix than an actual idea. Versus Critical Role having 9 symbols, it makes a deck building feel more open. As Pippa said, another person who has replied, it leads to certain interactions between certain cards based on what symbols they have. And URs plus being non-attuned is a cool idea because of the fact that URs and SRs should exist as build-around cards similar to your characters, so it makes so it makes sense for them not to be attuned, which makes sense, right? Like base cards like commons, uncommons, maybe rares should be like the shell of like the of what the symbol does, right? And then URs, SRs. Maybe some rares are based on like classes, like in Critical Role. Kind of focus in on what your character wants to do. Another person said, I like the deck building flexibility. I think it's a new way of thinking, of making and crafting. I'm glad to see they are mixing sets with both attuned and normal cards, because having a set of all attuned is just ass. Yeah, that person's correct. I believe that if we just have all attuned cards, you're just slapping the best 60-ish cards with whatever character you want to play, right? And granted, with attuned, we're going to have certain symbols be a lot of the same cards, just based on power level and just like the deck idea. Like the casino decks are like, you have a casino shell, and then you, like your Hanji, you put in some life cards. Your Ghidorah, you put in void cards. What else? Like you know, you're just playing anybody that can destroy things out of your stage or whatnot. Grog, you're playing death, you're playing earth and fire cards, right? So lower rarity being attuned and higher rarity being multi-symbol is a good idea. As lower stuff isn't typically overpowered, so there's not much to worry over them. Attune everything like AOT is a bad design. Like AOT was, should be like something there, is a bad design, and they need to stay away from it. Overall, I like it if they keep going the way Critical Role is. I'm not crazy about it. It really warped how deck building works. It's easier for new players to approach, but I feel deck diversity is suffering for it, for each character specifically. To elaborate, pre-attuned, every character had minimum 3 distinct ways they could be built. At least one unique deck for each symbol. Different symbols had different card pools, different packages, different styles. Now it all just kind of bleeds together, yeah. So this person is really worried about the homogenization of decks, which is kind of funny because, like, you kind of see that in like fighting games too, or like MMOs like Final Fantasy 14. There's like people worried about like everything does everything, so what's the point of symbol identity? Like every card, like every symbol has like a draw effect, every symbol has a destroy effect, every symbol does this, every symbol does that. But now back attuned, you would have like chaos doesn't really touch draw, right? Death really doesn't do a certain thing. All draws a million cards. Air readies things, whatnot. And now that you are able to like splice in these different symbols on your character, your deck becomes just a like a mishmash, a homogenization of like everything that every symbol it can do. Like how every symbol can do everything now because of you can add in cards from other symbols. So now every deck kind of does almost everything. It also feels real lazy from a design standpoint. Like, why try to balance cards and abilities across multiple symbols? Just make them mono-symbol instead. It hasn't really helped establish symbol identity more either, since characters can use all the attuned cards they have access to. Like, Hex seems to be trying more than AOT to establish symbol themes again. I actually disagree with that. I actually think that the attuned cards really focused in on symbol identity, and the hex cards are more character driven or class driven, or not really symbol but theme, right? Like what your deck archetype wants to do. I think that's what it probably focuses on more than like the AOT. Like instead of saying AOT, attuned cards in general are just more of a shell to build around, and then your higher rarity cards are going to be what your character is driven towards more. This person hasn't played in a while, so I've been out of the loop pretty hard, so this might have changed. However, disabling our use of off-symbol cards, if even to our own detriment, and then adding a tune felt really off-putting. Personally, I don't like it very much. I thought symbols restricting the playable card pool was always a good thing. It meant you always locked yourself out of some options by choosing one symbols over another. Correct. This is the old style, the pre-attuned. You really did get to lock yourself out of certain strategies or effects, right? You wouldn't be able to pull from a symbol to help. You know, like say you're playing the earth symbol and your weakness is drawing cards, so you throw in the all symbol, or your character has like life on it, so you throw in medium for card cycle, right? So you kind of had to play with, you had to like, so every symbol had a strength and weakness. Now it just seems like every symbol or every deck is just kind of strong, which not a bad thing in my opinion. I think like people should have strong decks and their deck should be strong because why play a deck if it isn't strong, especially competitively, right? But I think like this person also has a point because now back to the other person's point where it feels like a homogenization of symbols and effects and abilities. We're kind of just in this. Well, why have a symbol in general? This person also quoted someone above, which I don't know what order these came in at, so I can't tell you who they pointed up to. So I like Attuned. I like how it makes deck building more fun and dynamic. Attuned sort of offers for standard that feeling of what off-symboling cards offers to old retro, not Rochester retro, making the deck choices much more unique and interesting decisions. My only gripe is that I wish we saw all symbols get attuned with more even distribution. This person has a fact, very very good point. Initially, when I heard that attuned was going to be both, he meant AOT sets. I thought we'd get attuned in Exandria. And that we'd get attuned in Exandria. I thought we'd see all 12 symbols get the attuned treatment and a rebalancing of the symbol distribution. Now seeing that we still have certain symbols absent, it sucks. This person's a good symbol player and he loves it, and I feel bad for him. It feels like certain symbols are being phased out, and that is legitimately disheartening. So that's facts, right? Like, it was kind of weird that we only had 6 symbols, but I know they're trying to do like this weird world building with this. Only these symbols exist in Attack on Titan world. Only these symbols exist in Heroes of Exandria and, you know, Turtles and all that stuff. So UVS Games has stated that we will be seeing other symbols that have not been heavily supported in the last like 6 months more supported. So symbols will kind of balance out. The only issue is that as you get closer and closer to rotation, entire symbol support is just going to disappear. So I think that they eventually have to mix the symbols more and more. Like I think like maybe 9 symbols a set is probably where you want to be at. And then like in Heroes of Exandria, we did have a good symbol card and an evil symbol card. Granted, it was only one card and it was on an SR. Both of them are on separate SRs, so maybe we see more than that. I wouldn't mind seeing some ultra rares to support something. I would also agree. I also think all was also supported too on a. I think it was good and all, or was it all and evil? I don't remember. I forget. I know Earthbreaker had all, and one of them had evil. I don't remember if any of them had good, but anyway, I like the block design of Attunement. It offers a different. It's different enough to have vet players tell the difference, but I did have a small concern when it came to teaching others the difference between symbol lock cards and attunement cards. When I was at Nats helping a new player at Nats build their deck, I could see the confusion on their face when looking at a symbol to run as their main. As for the function and what cards have attunement, I think Critical Role has the best version of it. So yeah, I agree. I think we should have some attuned and some non-attuned. I just think it just works out better that way, and I think it just, instead of like if the ultra rares and SRs in AOT had this type of design, I think you may not see. I don't know. I'm not trying to say. I think it's just better in Critical Role than it was in AOT. So I agree with this person. I believe this is 2 parts and then a single. So as someone who has not played in a bit, oh no, this is the same thing. This is all one thought, I believe. Like I said, I didn't remember who I kept track of. As someone who has not played in a bit, but still keeps up mostly with the game, not financially, here's my thoughts. I don't know if you care or not from us, but we don't play it often very much anymore. Attunement, which I do. These are close friends of mine that haven't played in a while, but yeah, I care about their opinion. Attunement, I think, is a great idea, but the way it came out with was terribly executed. I agree for the most part with Trent, another local of mine. I think keeping it to trial or challenger decks mostly it would be fine, and making the more optimized cards not attuned to be more character specific is better, which I think Critical Role focused in on that. I also could be seeing attunes just being basic support for anything in that symbol, but to make this point short, simply make attuned cards more of a support for the symbol and not the character, and make non-attuned card support specifically character supported. I would not have an issue with some character having 2 symbols versus having 3 if there was a clear bonus or penalty for dipping into less or more supported respective symbols respectively. And I think that's an interest. I do think that's why the Attack on Titan people had more health because they only had 2 symbols. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm just spitballing. Let me know in the comments below if you know. The personal issue I have with the tuned cards is that they only support half the symbol spread. And they did this without giving a guess the major half. And this is a major issue across another company came across. It leads to poorly balanced symbol spreads, and if they intend to stick with half the symbols, do it. But if they printed support for them, I think they should not break up the symbol spread for attunement with the rest of the symbols. I am biased, but this is coming from someone who's actively seen major issues cause this in other games. To wrap this up, what I said, I think the idea is neat, but terribly executed, which I think is a lot of people's thoughts, right? Before I move on, I think not having all the symbols represented or 9 symbols represented and then rotating 3 out every time, because you could easily have thrown the other symbols on characters. Just they could pull from the other sets. They don't need to have it in Attack on Titan. They could have had all 3 symbols. And then you could have just pulled they could have pulled support from older cards. Yeah, it could have been fine. Or you could build them on a main symbol and then have support cards from the new set. I could see that they're not working on oversaturating the market with them, but in fact they are not giving us attuned cards for other symbols will lead to major issues down the road. I would love to see them more support for the other symbols, which I think everybody does. Everyone wants to see good. I know a few people want. I have been known to say, hey man, we should cut 3 symbols. But 9, I think, is the sweet spot, is where we want it. Thoughts on change? We still wish we went 100% attuned and sent it, but if they only want to use main symbols for higher rarities, it's only stomachable enough. My opinion of tuned is that it's mid. It's fact. Yeah, some people just don't like it. Some people think it's whatever. It's a nothing burger, whatnot. Attuned is made deck building more difficult, not less. Main because you have to filter through all the character symbols instead of just one symbol. This falls back on the mental load argument, where they were like, well, we're trying to reduce the mental load, but then now we have to have 3, instead of 1 symbol of support, we pull from 3 symbols of support. And then also, it's just like, there's just more keywords, more effects, just like, they added Blitz in. They added Frenzy. It's just, I don't mind adding more mechanics, but don't say you want to not dumb down the game, but simplify the game, but then just keep adding mechanics on top of mechanics. So, pick a lane, right? Like, pick a lane. From the old guard, personally, I don't like it at all. Nope. Oh, I don't like it. This newfangled stuff. I think it makes the game less diverse as more and more good cards comes out. More and more decks will just be good cards. Deck. Another issue is the mechanic has no limiting factor, no drawbacks, no penalties, because there is no hesitation to include the cards. Personally, I'd rather just prefer symbol chaining to return. At least then there's some sort of thought process and plan required. Another complaint is that characters are not evenly given symbols. So if one character has 6 symbols to draw from, but another character only has 2, that is not fair and unbalanced, which again further limits design space and makes the game less diverse. So I don't like it. Just bring symbol chaining back. Nope, don't like it. You newfangled kids, nope. Another person said, I do wish Attunement came with the removal of 4 symbols, though. I like actually yeeting them instead of this weird thing where they hardly get any support or none at all. Yeah, that's true. I agree with that. I think it makes deck building more engaging while initially being a bit of a daunting idea to consider. If every symbol had even distribution, I would want to see every symbol primarily to be attuned outside of the high rarity end, which I agreed the other week is a welcome change. I'm not sure if I like characters having less symbols because of it, but that seemed to be they like AOT only, I think. Yeah, I think it is AOT only where they're only going to have 2 symbols. I don't know. Critical Role, all those characters had 3 symbols. The Deku deck all had 3 symbols. Solo Leveling also had all 3 symbols. And Star Trek, they were all 3 symbol characters. with attuned cards. So I don't think we're going to be going back to 2 symbols. We may see more characters like Keyleth, Deku with more symbols, which I'm cool with. I think that's neat. This one's a little bit of a little long, so let's go into it. Bad initially, good now that we're getting more than 2 sets and 6 symbols with it. Each character gives each character a unique pool of cards to draw from, moving deck homogeneities. I don't know if that's a word, but I'm pretty sure I just butchered it. Sorry. From symbols moving towards more characters, which is great. I think we want character-driven decks than symbol-driven decks, in my opinion. Obviously, there will be packages that homogenize symbols like Death Recoup Time or Death Gamble. But overall, it feels refreshing for each character to have some combo for stuff only they can do. I also think having URs, SRs be regular symbols is also a huge upside, as it gives reason to be on specific symbols, which can then lead to different choices when picking out our package of attuned stuff. Yeah, I agree. Having character-specific themes, or like as in Critical Role, Thief, Mage, Brute, those like Brawler, those class themes, I think are the way you kind of want to go. I think that's kind of neat. And then add in that layer of the character-driven theme. And I think like the symbol theme should just be like the shell, and then you dump in all the good stuff that your character can bring. Makes the higher rarities feel like draws to the symbols, while lower rarity stuff is a baseline. This is exactly what you get, and no one gets the exact same stuff. Feels good. That's exactly what I said. I agree. This person's so smart. It wasn't me, by the way. It led me down a very specific rabbit holes of this character has a perfect combo of symbols for the X plus Y plus Z interaction, and what can I do with this, which is super cool. Ford, for example, mid character. Aw, poor Ford. We love Ford in this house. But his symbols are so good and have cool interactions within them which becomes a draw towards playing with them, even if his face isn't that exciting. I think as more attuned sets come out, it will even out the field a lot as symbols that have lack support will finally get some. The biggest downside is obviously not having every symbol supported in every set, but I can see them working up to it with AOT having 6, Hex having 9, future sets including the last 3 symbols, though all 12 will probably not see the same representation within the same set. I agree. This actually sums up my entire thoughts on it completely. Attunement, this next one, attunement itself is fine. It is how they introduced it. It was bad. I think that's just the consensus across the board for everybody. Oh boy, here we go again. Another long one. I really appreciate people coming in and giving me their really good, heartfelt thoughts instead of F this person's stupid, the company's dumb, yada, yada, yada. So, attuned cards present a really difficult design challenge that I don't think they executed particularly well. And that's exponentially increased possible card interactions. Technically speaking, any attuned card can be played in the same deck as any other card in the game as long as you play a character with the correct symbols. Previously, if design wanted to print a card but didn't want to interact with another already existing card, the solution was extremely simple. Just don't let them share any symbols. Something symbol chaining something. Now, every card needs to be evaluated in the context of it being played with literally every other card in the entire game. This is true. And I think that's a borderline impossible to balance. We haven't quite hit the percentage of attuned cards that I think is completely unmanageable yet, but if the current trajectory continues and we get another year of mostly or all attuned cards, I think we'll see a huge problem come post 2026 rotation where nearly the entire card pool is attuned. This is true. But this is, I don't remember if I got this before or after we saw all of the Hex, URs, and SRs, so maybe this person has changed their mind on it, because maybe we have like two-thirds being attuned and a third being attuned. Maybe that's a little more manageable. Maybe not. I don't know. AOT characters with 2 symbols will have extremely few options, and decks will start looking extremely cookie cutter and homogenized. I love this word has been sprinkled all over the place. Compared to currently an outlier, but who's to say how many symbols they'll be giving other characters? Something like Deku 6 who has access to 5, by that point, we'll be almost use half the total card pool. The concept of tune cards is cool, but if it was used sparingly for a couple crucial symbols or character identity cards, that would be one thing. But rushing straight into 150 plus attuned cards per set was pretty strange, and in my opinion, reduces some of the I can't say that word. Yeah, I got cotton mouth. I need water and I don't have it. Yes, of deck building for me while doing very little to the fabled new player experience. Yeah, this was supposed to be like a new player thing, and it kind of just, I don't know, was a little more difficult than they thought. If AOT had really popped off like I'm sure they'd hoped, we'd have a tidal wave of new players who wanted AOT only content and learn the attune mechanics while looking at the old 3 symbol cards the same, with the same mildly interested curiosity of an MHA only player like me looks at retro cards, then maybe I'd have a different opinion on the matter. The reality is, however, that this AOT soft reboot only player doesn't really exist, and the addition of attune mechanics, while still mixed with the 3 years of 3 symbol cards, surfaces only as an additional barrier for a new player and is completely counter to the original intention of streamlining the game. This is correct. Trying to streamline the game while adding more new mechanics and changing this whole way that we deck build kind of was more counterproductive. But I don't know. I as an older player, it came easy to me. But as a newer player, I guess it's just more, hey, you see these symbols on your characters, you just play these cards, I guess. But yeah. Also, if you're this player who, if you watch my videos, I appreciate this. Let me know what your thoughts now after Hex. Let me know. It'd be really interesting to, like, again, I'm going to try to revisit this in a year and see how it really, you know, like, if everyone still feels the same. Alright, so the last one is this. On paper, Attuned is fantastic for the game on multiple fronts. It simplifies deck construction for new players. It opens doors for way better limited format experience, whether those are draft, sealed, or cube. In terms of UVS execution of launching Attuned, this was an epic failure. While sticking to a... So like paper and in practice, obviously, the epic failure. While sticking to a specific set of attuned for a specific IP is okay, and a nice aspect for deck building, the issue was the release of the same group of symbols in 3 sets of a 4 set period. Yeah, so AOT 1, AOT 2, AOT 3 are all going to have the same symbols. And then the only outlier is the Hex set, which is going to have some of the same symbols. But the thing has all the same symbols, and then 3 additional. So yeah, so we're gonna have 3 sets, basically 4 sets of the same 6 symbols with a little bit of 3. Attune should have never been assigned. Attune should have never been assigned to URSR cards like AOT. Critical Role had this philosophy in check by making all URSRs as the normal symbol cards, which assumes there are no more limitations on deck building for these cards. At least more often than not for more powerful cards. Yeah, so this kind of like how AOT 1 and 2, just like you got ultra rares with the tunes, so you got to play all these really, really powerful cards and no matter what. But now with Heroes of Exandria, you have to actually pick and choose what symbol you want to be because you just can't throw everything in. UVS Games made it clear that the long-term purpose was to make Limited more viable for UniVersus, but with the very first set of AOT 1, they broke the fundamental rules of TCG game design, set size scaling, which has been around from the 90s, which made AOT 1 draft bad, thus contradicting their own plans. I believe a world where Attuned is primarily restricted to cards below the URSR is in the perfect place for existence. I agree with that. Yeah. We all know that they wanted to focus in on draft and make draft or sealed really, really playable with AOT 1 and a 300 card set where it was just like rarities were all over the place and power levels of cards were all over the place, and it was just not great. It was not great at all. So that's it for the video, guys. I guess my final thoughts really echo a lot of these players. Attuned is fine. Implementation was horrible. Bring back the other symbols that are missing. Make sure it's URSR only. I bet you could probably venture to say rares as well. Maybe some rares for like in Heroes of Exandria, we have mage cards that cover both mage symbols. So I think that would be a cool place to be. Leave commons, uncommons as the attuned cards for support for symbols and symbol identities. Leave everything rare and up. theme of class abilities, character-driven themes, and I think we'll all be good. So we'll revisit this in a year. Not a year, in 6 months. So back in August, maybe when Turtles comes out, and we'll review this and see how everyone thinks. So sorry for the half an hour long video, guys. Thanks for watching. If you stayed to the end, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, hit those bells for notifications. And until the next video, take care.